Grain Designs, folks.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming. Carrie did a great job. Design. Just as Scott mentioned, we are Grain Designs. I'm Blaine.
I'm Grant.
As you may have been able to tell, I am not Phil. He came under the weather. I think he's actually just a little shy. He's out there somewhere wearing a black Grain Design shirt.
There we go.
I think,
Phil right there in the corner.
He's really shy. So in order to help him come out of his box a little bit, just give him a big hug when you see him. Yeah. All right? But anyway, I am actually Patrick, his better-looking cousin and current employee of Grain Designs.
Right, and just as Scott mentioned, what we primarily do is we build furniture and home decor, almost primarily out of reclaimed wood. We also incorporate with a lot of our designs steel accent pieces, whether it be a table base or a simple steel structure, as you can see under the table. It's kind of something that came into our design style and something we like to incorporate with our pieces. So that being said, Blaine's going to go through a few slides and at least give you a better idea of what we do in terms of the work and projects we create.
So just as Grant and Scott have already mentioned, we primarily build from reclaimed wood. We also incorporate metal into a lot of our designs. Here's a couple of sliding barn door designs, as well as a door you see here on stage behind us that we have built. They all do incorporate reclaimed wood, some steel in the example there. Here is a larger conference table that we did for a company out in the lakes area. I would describe our design style as modern rustic and contemporary industrial. I guess either one. All of our designs kind of incorporate both, for sure. So here on the left you see another dining table. The middle is a office desk for a corporation in town, and then on the right, some of our smaller wall decor, also incorporating the reclaimed wood and steel. Here's a little more, as you can see, the contemporary and industrial look of the wood and steel together in a bed frame as well as a dining table. And then this is just another dining table example with some bent steel plates, an inlaid piece of plate steel, may that be for setting your drinks on, or potentially a hot plate. Of course, you'd still want to use your
Hot pads.
Hot pads. And then we jump into our another coffee table design, which this one is strictly out of wood, and it's a little more rustic than most of our other designs, but still something different. So this takes us right to where we kind of began, and as a company in the presentation and each project kind of begins with us reclaiming old materials. So we would go tear down a barn, a building, take the bits and pieces from it that we could use, kind of curate them and think on the fly as to what that could become. So today, that's what we're here to do. We're going to show you a few different projects that you can do at home, whether it be from reclaimed wood. Of course, we do recommend that. Since we are a sustainable company, we'd recommend you would use something you may have at home that may have more meaning. So you can buy this stuff at your Lowe's, Home Depot, of course, but we prefer to use reclaimed wood. That's kind of the company's mission. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into the projects here.
Yeah, and like Blaine mentioned, all the projects are outlined in your pamphlet towards the end if you page kind of to the back side. And keep in mind we kept a note section at the end of the pamphlet, either for you to take notes, as we encourage. Otherwise, it's a good place to leave a note for your significant other or handyman, maybe next to a cold six-pack. Say, maybe you could help me out with this. So I'm gonna let Blaine handle the first project, and I might go try and find a cold six-pack.
That actually sounds really good. I think I'm going to go do that too.
Oh, well, wait. I need at least one of you on stage to
Pat, you got it. You got it, Pat.
Of course, the
Pat?
employee gets asked
All
to
right.
stay on stage.
The first project we're going to start with here is the reclaimed pipe shelving that you kind of saw us demolish. We're going to kind of walk you step by step on how you'd go about building this. So first, of course, you want to gather all your materials. Pat's kind of going to demonstrate as I walk you through this step by step here. All these materials that we have are readily available at your Lowe's, Home Depot, Menards. They're just plumbing fittings. This would be your floor flange. We chose 1/2-inch floor flanges. Of course, as Grant mentioned, this is all step-by-step in your notebook as well. So there's a materials list, a picking list that you can kind of go to the hardware store, and they'll walk you through it. So the floor flanges, we actually have the pipe itself. We're going to need some screws to attach the floor flanges to the wall, as well as the caps for the ends of the pipe, so it kind of gives it a finished look. And then just for safety, you're going to want some pipe straps to put on the bottom of the shelf to hold it in place. That's going to go around and hold the reclaimed wood. Now, as I mentioned, we did choose reclaimed wood, of course, because that's what our company is kind of all about, is reusing old materials. You can use material that you find valuable to yourself, whether it be from an old family barn. Maybe you do just go buy it from Lowe's and Home Depot and make it a DIY project where you paint it or stain it yourself. I know Maria is going to talk to you a little bit later about chalk painting. Maybe you'd want to chalk paint your shelf. But today we're going to walk you through how to do it with the reclaimed wood. So first, the first step you're going to want to do, of course, is either, if you have reclaimed wood, sand it, get it prepared. If not, if you're going to paint something or stain it, you're going to want to do that first and set it aside because it's going to need time to dry. So once you have all your materials, you're going to want to assemble them. It's fairly straightforward. The threaded rod, you're going to screw onto the pipe flange.
Glad I got a manicure today.
You're going to want to put the pipe caps on the end of the flanges. I'm glad too.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. They look good?
Yeah, well, I try.
Okay. And then once you have both those assembled, the easiest way to do this, there's of course multiple ways, but you're going to want to locate your studs first.
It's right here.
We had... Don't hire your mouthy employees. I'm kidding. He's a hard worker. So whether you have your stud finder, of course there's multiple ways to find a stud if you don't want to go expense.
He knows.
If
He
you
just
don't,
hires them.
If you don't want to expense on a expensive stud finder, there's multiple ways you can do it. You're going to be able to do it by sound in a lot of places. You can just kind of knock on the wall. You can hear it's hollow. As you move closer to the stud, you're going to hear it's a little more solid. There's probably a stud in that area. You're going to want to pre-drill holes to find the wood stud on the backside to make sure you're fastening to something secure so your shelf doesn't fall off. A stud finder will do the same thing, but it won't work on this wall simply because it's all wood. So the wood surface will not find the wood behind it.
One thing I'd like to point out too is if you have an older home, there's a really good chance you're going to have plaster. Stud finder won't work on that either. You almost always need to have drywall for a stud finder to work. Otherwise, you got to kind of do a trial and error, drilling holes in there, whatnot, like Blaine's mentioning.
Now, one other tip on maybe a newer home, if your stud finder isn't working for you, you may want to, one other tip would be to go down to your trim boards. This doesn't have trim, but in the event that it does have trim, there may be holes along the bottom side where they fasten the trim to the wall. Now, if you had a contractor that wasn't drinking like Grant backstage, he should locate the studs and fasten the trim directly to the stud. So that would be an easy way to locate your stud, kind of draw a line up, and that would give you a guide point for where you want to hang your shelf. So with that in mind, I think we're going to go ahead and fasten the first part of the shelf. Since we have already pre-located our studs on stage here, we're going to go ahead and fasten the first part in. there's still a lot of giggles about the stud. You
Yeah.
really,
I thought it was very believable myself. I know a lot of people get intimidated when they have to start using power tools, especially if they've never really done that, grown up with it. But I promise you, it's actually very easy as long as you try to stay safe. Obviously, a drill is pretty safe, but literally a fourth grader could do this, which is lucky because that's the extent of Blaine's education. So
the only thing to keep in mind when using a drill, it is very easy to, if you don't put pressure on the screw, it's easy to strip out the screw. Unfortunately, Phil is in the crowd today and not on stage, so he can't show you how to properly strip a screw. But with a little pressure, it should go in relatively easy.
the other thing to keep in mind, and will keep you from stripping screws, is make sure that you have the bit that actually fits. A lot of people try to force a bit that's too small or too big, and that will strip the screw.
So for this, we chose a 2.5-inch lag screw. Phillips, just because it's a little easier, it's more common around the house. But this is a number 3 Phillips head, which is larger than your standard Phillips head, simply because the head on this screw is going to be large enough that it will catch the floor flange.
For a shelving unit like this, you're going to want to use a bigger screw because you're likely going to be putting something that weighs at least a fair amount on there, such as these plates, and otherwise you don't want it to rip out of the wall, and obviously that would not be good.
Now, one thing I didn't mention in the beginning is this is a creative process of your own. Of course, as Carrie mentioned, you really want to design something that's going to be practical for your home. So you want to design so it finds a solution. So our solution here was, of course, Carrie, the woman that was designing and did a great job up here, requested that the shelves be the same width as the dresser. So we chose a width of 42 inches. You can cut your piece of wood to whatever length you desire. It could be longer, because as long as you're using the correct screws, it's going to support it. It could be shorter as well. But there are multiple ways that you could go about leveling this. Since we have a 24-inch level and a 42-inch shelf, we can't just lay the level shelf to shelf because it won't level. We don't have another leveling point. So what we have to do in this case, we're going to place the level on the board and kind of mock it up as if we were installing it right now.
Which kind of becomes a two-man project, so if you are going to do this by yourself, you will want a longer level that can reach across.
So once we've kind of found the level with the board in place, I'm going to go ahead and lift this off as he holds it in place so we can screw the hanger into place. Now there is 4 holes on each of these floor flanges. Unfortunately, you probably, go ahead. You probably won't be able to use all 4 holes simply because a stud isn't wide enough on the back end of the drywall that you're going to hit all 4. So we align the holes horizontally so that at least we'll hit 2, and that'll be plenty of strength. So now we're going to go ahead and place the shelf on. We chose our shelf depth based on the size of pipe that we bought. We chose to buy an 8-inch pipe. So once you put your flanges on, you're going to want to measure between the end cap and the floor flange, which is about 7 inches in this case. So that's what we cut our shelf to.
The other thing I'd like to point out is Obviously, we use reclaimed wood. Reclaimed wood generally has a lot more character than what you're going to be able to purchase as far as brand new. You can see that we have cut this side down, but the other side, when it wasn't cut down, also had character. What you're going to want to do is basically look at your shelf and decide, or your piece of wood and decide which side looks the best to you, which side has the most character. And that's kind of the really fun part about reclaimed wood, is you get so much character and you can kind of decide what's going to look the best.
So now the last step in this process is we're going to want to fasten the shelf securely to the pipes, just so in the event you put too much weight on one side, it doesn't flip up, and then you're left with a disaster.
So the main thing you need to do right now is you need to measure each side to make sure that you are centered on your pipes, I guess you would say. So we actually have the holes already since we took it off, so we don't have to do that. But having your tape measure, I'll show you how we would do that. So essentially, all you would do is butt your tape measure up to your pipe right here, figure out what that measurement is to the outside. It says 4.5 inches. Come over to the other side. A little bit more than 4.5, so we should go that way a little bit. And voila, it's centered. Now, probably what you're going to have to do normally is just a little trial and error, move it back and forth until you have it centered. Once you have that centered, then we can go ahead, screw these in to hold it in place.
Now, what I did while he was chatting there is I did go ahead and switch the bit from a number 3 Phillips bit to a number 2, simply because we chose a smaller screw to fasten the pipe clamps into the shelf here. Now, it probably looks like we know what we're doing because we just created and designed Your Life Lovely. Of course, you saw that was done before, so the accessorizing, we can't take credit for that. I guess that concludes the first project. Thank you. That concludes the first project. If there's any questions, like Scott said, we'll follow up afterwards. There will be a quick Q&A. And you can shout questions then. In the meantime, we're going to ask Grant to come back on stage, and we're going to show you another demonstration.
That seemed like it was too quick.
Too quick. Your legs are sore?
Yeah.
I'm going to go grab a drink. I'll see you guys later.
Okay, so the next project we're going to show you how to do is, it's actually what's behind the clock, directly behind me. So what it is it's basically a reclaimed wood slat sign, I guess as we like to call them. And we do them in a bunch of different sizes, shapes, kind of whatever wood we come across. So what Blaine's going to do, this one is obviously, the one on stage it's roughly 48 by 48, kind of to fit the size of that clock. However, the one we're going to do, I think, is going to be closer to the size of the one in your packet. The other thing to mention is the instructions in your packet, the way we hung the section on this wall is a little bit different than I'm going to show you. But it's going to give you a little bit more versatility in terms of if you want to move it around or take it off. It's a lot easier to do it this way I'm going to show you as opposed to the way we did it previously. So in this case, we just took their barn boards. They're all cut to the same, relatively the same length. On that one, we cut them to a little bit different length to get a little bit more variation in the, I guess, the look of it. So what we did with these is we actually sanded them and then stained a few of them a different color. So depending on the color tones you have in your house, I guess whatever you're looking for, any stain you get at any local hardware store will work. And what I like to do is basically lay them out in a pattern I think is going to work. Pick the best color scheme that'll that'll match what the look you're going for. Lay it all out the way you want to see it on the wall. So we'll say that probably looks pretty good. And then once you realize you want that side out, you're going to flip all of them back over, leaving them in the same pattern if you can, or relatively the same pattern. So maybe respace them, get them how you want them. And then what we have here are they're basically backing for the slat sign. Two more of the same pieces of wood. They're all 3/4 of an inch, and the most important thing I think to mention would be that you have to know the thickness of your wood, both the backing and the front, because if you use brads that are too long, you're going to shoot through the front side and have nails sticking through your wall decor. So in this case, both of our pieces are 3/4 of an inch, so we chose to use 1.25" brads to make sure we're not going to go through. Simply center them, line them up, I guess relatively close. Again, this doesn't matter too much in the hanging application I'm going to show you, so get them relatively close. Space them off the edge. We'll say 2.5.
2.25. Good.
Something like that.
Two and a quarter.
Yep. So if you have I guess the next tool you can use if you need, it's just a speed square. This is a little bit larger one than normal.
It's not a square, that's a triangle.
Good one. So this is what you use to kind of at least square up your pieces to make sure you're centered to some degree. Again, it doesn't matter a whole lot because we're going to hang a cable across it so you can center it on your wall as you go.
Now, as Grant mentioned, for this demonstration, we're using an 1.25" brad simply because of the material that we're using. I know in the packet, as we detailed step by step, you can also choose to use 2x4s as your backing. In the event you use 2x4s, it's going to be a thicker material. You want to use a longer brad that will compensate for that length. You can also, if you don't want to invest in a brad nailer and the brads, of course, you can just use hammer and nails. You could even do it from the front or the back. It's going to give you a similar look. It just kind of depends what tools you have at hand.
So that's right. So what we'll do is we'll just kind of, at least two-person job for this, getting your boards tight so you don't have any large seams. And then Blaine will go ahead and put a couple in the bottom board. Hopefully. I think that was charged.
We will with the charged battery is what he's
right
going to
here.
say.
Sorry about that. I think this one was it. Hopefully we can build this. So in this case, because the boards are a little bit wider, I'm using 4 brads in each board. It's not necessarily, I guess it's not necessary, but just to make sure that you're getting a secure hold. So we'll just go ahead and get a couple in these. That fast. Thank you.
Now, as you mentioned, we are going to hang a hanging strip across this, so it doesn't make a huge difference whether or not these are centered. But in the event that that your other support was way off center, not the same distance from the end, it's never going to hang level. So it is a good idea just to double check your measurements from the end. Although we have a jagged edge here, it's tough to tell, but we're relatively within 7 inches, so if we match that on this side, it should still hang level. And then we'll square it up again to make sure that it is square.
Come on. So that's the easy part, especially if you have the, I guess it's all relatively easy, but if you have a brad nailer, it obviously makes it go a lot faster. The last step would be just hanging your cable across. So in this application we chose, they're just simple D hangers, D-ring hangers you can get anywhere, Menards, Home Depot, any of those places. So you can just get them close. Again, it's not going to matter too much because your cable is going to center the piece no matter where you put it. So
Now the other fastening mechanism that we're using here is just wire cable. This is picture cable. This is also available right next to the D-ring hangers in your local hardware store. We're just going to span it across the two hangers. You're going to loop it around and tie it back to itself. So we'll just extend it past to get the correct distance.
and you're just going to want to make sure you leave enough length to loop it through and then wrap it back around itself so you don't get it too tight.
And then you're going to want to start by just looping one side. As I said, just kind of wrap it around itself, keep it tight. And of course, this is going to depend how much you hang on your wall, or if you intend to hang a clock on it, such as this afterwards. They do make different tensile strengths of picture wire. So we chose a 100-pound test just so if you decide that you want to hang something on it afterwards, it's still going to support the weight of itself and whatever you choose to hang on top of it.
So the finished product.
Now the final demonstration that we're going to walk you through is the reclaimed wood planter boxes. You see them here on stage. They're also available back there at the Chic store. This is Phil's area of expertise. He's built multiple planter boxes. However, since Phil isn't around, we're going to demonstrate it for you.
So this is basically the raw material that we get. As you can see, it's always not in the best shape, and there may be some remnants from other creatures that have been using the facility before us. So we'll sand everything down. If you don't have like an orbital sander, I guess another good sander is just a block sander. They're foam. 80 grit is about what we like to use. It's abrasive enough to get the slivers out and also get any unwanted things out on it. So it's a simple little elbow grease, but it's relatively quick, and you can change the color. Again, if you're going to stain it, I would certainly recommend sanding it first. So these are the three raw pieces that we basically start with. Blaine has the next set here of the actual pieces.
What you're going to want to do is we designed a 36-inch planter box. So you're going to want to, this is a 4-foot piece that we started with kind of as a raw material. So you're going to want to go ahead and mark your 36 inches and then cut it on a chop saw or your table saw, whatever you have available to you, to kind of cut it to the length that you desire. Of course, this doesn't have to be 36 as well. That's just what we chose. So if we mark all three of them, we're going to go ahead and cut them on our chop saw. The end result will be what we have here to the right that's already been pre-cut, just so we don't have so we're not showing off too many of our power tools.
So again, the three already sanded pieces. Lay them out depending on, I guess, how you want your planter box to look. We'll do that. And again, this is probably certainly better as a two-person job, simply for at least getting the box started. So
I would guess there's someone more qualified than I to help you with this.
there might be. Yeah, is there anybody in the audience that would like to help? Scott, why don't you go ahead and pick for us?
Scott, keep your hands up. Scott's the elusive chosen one.
All right. Yeah. You want to help me get it started, Blaine?
Yeah. So as she makes her way to stage here, we're going to throw in a couple of the first brads.
So again, it's just lining it up. Well, maybe we should wait here. Thank you for coming up. What's your name? Lisa. Okay, so I think Blaine and I are going to get it started here, and then I'll have you come in at the end and help us get the end caps on. So what we're going to do is basically line up your ends. The important thing with the brad nailer, of course, is to make sure that you're keeping it as level as possible. If not, you could have a brad shoot through the top or the bottom, and hopefully your finger's not in the way for that application, so we'll make sure we're careful here.
Now this is a similar application to the reclaimed wood wall, whereas if you happen to not have a brad nailer at home, you can use glue and nails to assemble this. You'll probably want to pre-drill your hole simply so the wood doesn't crack out.
Let's see. All right, we'll give it a try. So I think it's, yep, you hold that one down, and then once it's already all compressed, then you can pull the trigger. Yep.
Yeah.
So
It isn't that volatile.
so
There's
you
a
go-
safety mechanism that as soon as you push it. Okay. As soon as you
Yep.
push it into the wood.
So go ahead and push it in on the bottom. Yep. Push it all the way in. And then there you go.
Perfect.
And one more in the end. Yep. Perfect. So we'll go ahead and put one in down here in that bottom corner.
It does make us uncomfortable when she handles the tool better than we do.
And then one down here. And then one up here. Yep.
Now when you get to this step before they were bradding it, the cutoff piece that you're going to have left from your initial 36-inch cut would have been this half the board. What you're going to have to do is go back to your planter box, kind of measure across the ends
Take it up
to
a
see
little
what
bit more.
this measurement
There you
should
go.
be. Then you're going to want to go cut that piece back out of the original
Might be
drop in order to make your end caps.
I'll just try real quick. We should be good. Then we'll go down here. Oh, you're hitting on the table, that's why. There you go. Yeah, take it off one more. There you go, now go.
I don't know if it's you, because I was having the same problem, so I'm not going to point any fingers here. It should, yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Regardless, we don't, yeah. What's that?
What's that?
It is nails, yeah. In the event that your brad gun or your hammer and
There we go.
nails is working, you're going to end up
light's
with the
on.
result something like this. You can accessorize it. Uh-oh.
Ah. You get the last one here. And that's it. Well, thank you, Lisa, and that's for you. Take it with you. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you as
Nice
well.
to meet you too.
Thank you very much. So as you mentioned, you can accessorize that however you want. As Carrie's chosen to do, she accessorized it on as a table centerpiece with a pair of them here. If you intend to use it outside and actually plant something in it, keep in mind that it is wood, so it's going to rot if you pour water in it. You may want to put drain holes in it, maybe a planter box with a liner. if you actually intend to plant something in it, or just artificial plants as Carrie was using earlier in her presentation as well.
Right, and that basically wraps up our portion of the Create section. So we're going to be around, I guess, for the rest of the show. If you have any questions or want to chat with us, we'll be around the whole time. So thank you.
Thank you very much.